Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. Today it's time to do the best league to do this for, the Serie A predictions for the season. I love talking about Serie A, and not 22, 2 obviously. Do you know what? And oh my god, am I going insane? Napoli winning on the first game. We're going to see AC Milan beating Cremonese. We're going to see Roma beating Bologna. We're going to see Cagliari getting beat by Fiorentina, Como and Lazio drawing. Atalanta beating Pisa. Juventus beating Parma, and Udinese drawing with Hellas Verona, whilst Inter win the first game of the season. Against Torino there, Cremonese drawing with Sassuolo, Lecce getting beat by AC Milan, Bologna beating Como, and Parma and Atalanta drawing, Pisa beaten by Rome, Napoli beating Cagliari, Genoa beaten by Juventus. What am I talking about? Torino and Fiorentina drawing as Inter beat Udinese, and Lazio beat Verona. Get to game week 5, and that's when we'll calculate in game week 5 and see where we're at. Cagliari beating Parma. We're going to see Inter and Juve drawing. Fiorentina beaten by Napoli. AS Roma beating Torino. Atalanta beating Lecce. We're going to see Pisa beat Udinese early on here. Sassuolo beating Lazio. AC and Bologna drawing. Hellas Verona beating Cremonese. And Como beating Genoa. I think we're getting things a bit spicier now in terms of how the league is going to be looking. Inter beating Sassuolo, Lazio and Roma drawing 3-0 in a massive game there. Napoli still winning their games. Udinese beaten by AC, Cremonese beaten by Parma, Lecce drawing Cagliari. AC Milan drawing with Napoli, Roma beating Verona, Cagliari beaten by Inter, Genoa drawing Lazio, see Como beating Cremonese, Juventus beating Atalanta, Parma drawing with Torino, Pisa beaten by Fiorentina, Sassuolo beating Udinese, and Lecce beaten by Bologna. 5 games in, and top of the table right now is Napoli. No team's actually won all the games so far. Genoa, Udinese and Cremonese all still without a win on the board for themselves, and Lecce as well. As we're seeing, Napoli still top of the table. Roma, Juventus and Inter join them. AC Milan also unbeaten. So yeah, we get like 5 games in. It's not a crazy thing to see. Teams like, I see Roma getting their first loss there. Atalanta beating Como. You see Bologna beating Pisa. Verona, Sassuolo drawing. Inter beating Cremonese. Juventus beating AC Milan. Lazio beating Torino. Parma beating Lecce. We see Napoli beating Genoa. And Udinese beating Cagliari, getting their first win on the board. AC Milan and Fiorentina drawing. Roma getting beat by Napoli. Atalanta by Napoli by Inter. Atalanta drawing with Lazio. See Cagliari beaten by Bologna. Genoa beating Parma. Como just beaten by Juventus. Torino just beaten by Napoli. Pisa beating Verona. That is a huge win. Cremonese and Udinese drawing. Lecce drawing with Sassuolo. Fiorentina drawing with Bologna. You see AC Milan beat Pisa as they continue on their good path. Hellas Verona drawing Cagliari. Lazio beating Juventus. We see Parma beating Como. Sassuolo beaten by AC. Napoli and Inter in a heated game. Udinese beating Lecce, and Cremonese beaten by Atalanta. We calculate again in game week 10. That's when is best to calculate. I think Genoa beating Cremonese, Como beating Hellas Verona, Bologna beating Torino, Inter beating Fiorentina, Udinese beaten by Juventus, Pisa being beat by Napoli, and Lecce by Lazio. There we go. Right, finally game week 10. We're going to see where we are at here really. As Torino beating Pisa, Inter beating Hellas Verona, Lazio beating Cagliari, Parma beating Bologna, Sassuolo drawing Genoa, Napoli beating Como, Udinese beaten by Atalanta, and Juventus with a big game week there. As we see, it is Napoli top of the table, Juventus and Inter just behind them. Bologna have made their way into the top 4. Roma, Lazio, Atalanta, usually chasing back. AC Milan only 1 loss, but too many draws on the board right now, sitting in 17th. I think you'd be hoping to change that soon. Parma sat in the middle here, 3 points from anyone. And in relegation zone is Cremonese without a win, Lecce without a win, and Pisa with only 2 wins on the board, no draws for themselves. Hellas Verona just on a 1 win and 3 draws and 6 points as well. calculate getting in with 15 and see where we're at. As Roma beat Udinese, Atalanta beating Sassuolo, Genoa drawing with Fiorentina, see Como beating Cagliari, you see Bologna drawing with Napoli, we see Inter beating Lazio and Juventus beating Torino, Parma beaten by AC Milan, we're going to see Pisa drawing with Cremonese, we're going to see Lecce beating Hellas Verona, getting some wins on board for themselves. Fiorentina drawing with Juventus, we can see Cagliari drawing with Genoa, we see Torino beating Como, Hellas Verona beating Parma, Inter beating AC in the Milan derby there, Lazio beating Lecce, Sassuolo beating Pisa, we see Napoli beating Atalanta, and Udinese drawing with Bologna, we see Cremonese beaten by Roma. AC beating Lazio, Roma drawing with Napoli, we see Atalanta beating Fiorentina, Genoa beating Verona, Como beating Sassuolo, Bologna winning their game against Cremonese, Juventus winning their game, Parma done with Udinese, and Pisa beaten at home by Inter as Lecce get beat by Torino. Cagliari drawing with Roma, Torino beaten by AC Milan, Verona getting beat by Atalanta, Inter just beating Como there, Lazio beating Bologna, Pisa beaten by Parma, Sassuolo beating Fiorentina, Napoli and Juventus drawing, Udinese beating Genoa, and Cremonese beating Lecce, getting a win on the board for themselves. You'll see Fiorentina beating Verona, AC beating Sassuolo, Roma drawing with Como, 3-0 win there for Atalanta, Genoa getting beat by, and then 1-1 draw between Juventus and Bologna, Torino beating Cremonese, Parma beating Lazio, Udinese getting beat by Napoli, and Lecce beating Pisa, as we will calculate the table, as now we are seeing Inter top of the table, with Napoli just behind them, without a loss on the board still, Cremonese still bottom of the table, Pisa on 7 points, only got a draw in the past 5 games, and Hellas Verona and Lecce both on 9 points, still pretty low down to the table. Como's at the middle, Bologna have now dropped out of the Champions League places, Atalanta, Juventus, Napoli, Roma, AC Milan going to have a good time fighting for that. Game week 19 is the next time we're going to calculate and see where we are at, as Cagliari beating Pisa, Genoa drawing with Atalanta, Como beating AC, Hellas Verona drawing with Bologna, you see Inter beating Lecce, Inter beating Lecce. There we go, Juventus and Roma drawing, Cremonese getting beat by Lazio, Sassuolo beating Torino, and Napoli beating Parma. We got a 2-2 draw there. We're going to see a 3-2 win for Atalanta. It's going to drop them off the top of the table into the Parma drawing with Fiorentina, Juventus only winning 1-0 against Pisa, Udinese drawing with Lazio, Cremonese getting beat by Napoli, and Lecce get beat by Como. Fiorentina beating Cremonese, Atalanta beating Roma, Cagliari beaten by AC, Genoa beating Pisa, Como beating Udinese, Genoa and Torino, Verona and Torino drawing, sorry. A 2-1 win for Inter there, a 2-0 win for Juventus, and a 3-1 win for Lazio against Napoli as Sassuolo and Parma draw, AC beating Genoa, Bologna drawing with Atalanta, Torino beating Udinese, Lazio drawing with Fiorentina, Parma getting beat by Inter, Pisa beaten by Como, Sassuolo beaten by Juventus, Napoli beating the Hellas Verona, Cremonese drawing 0-0 with Cagliari, and Lecce getting beat by Roma. Halfway through the season now, Inter top of the table, 2 losses on the board, Napoli with a loss on the board finally sat on 46 points, Juventus not far behind on 44, Atalanta, AC both on 38 with Roma, Lazio, Fiorentina, Bologna, even Como I'd say is still close enough to make some sort of challenge. Lecce and Pisa and Cremonese all in the relegation zone still, with Verona just ahead of them. Cagliari and Udinese could find themselves in a bit of trouble as the season goes on, but we'll wait and see what goes on. As Fiorentina beat AC Milan, Roma beating Lazio, we have Atalanta beating Torino, we have Genoa beating Cagliari, Como drawing with Bologna, see Verona beating Lazio, Inter drawing with Napoli, Juventus beating Cremonese, and that's going to open the door up for Juventus to try and catch up to him. Lecce beating Parma, could be big. AC beating Lecce the week after, Cagliari beaten by Juventus, Bologna beating Fiorentina, Torino drawing with Roma, Lazio drawing with Como, Parma beating Genoa, Pisa getting beat by Atalanta, Napoli beating Sassuolo. Yeah, and Inter continuing their game as Cremonese draw with Verona. I'm going to see Fiorentina beating Cagliari, Roma beating AC Milan, Atalanta beating Parma, Genoa beating Bologna, Como drawing with Torino, Verona beating Udinese, Inter walking away with a big win against Pisa, Juventus with a 2-1 win against Napoli, Sassuolo beating Cremonese, and Lecce drawing with Lazio. They try and making their way away. Como beating Atalanta, Bologna drawing with AC Milan, Torino beating Lecce, Lazio beating Genoa, Parma and Juventus drawing. A 0-0 draw between Pisa and Sassuolo. Napoli beating Fiorentina, Udinese beating Roma, and Cremonese getting walked on by Inter there. Fiorentina play Torino there, 2-2 draw between AC and Como. Roma beating Cagliari, Atalanta beating Cremonese, Genoa beating by Napoli, Bologna beating Parma. A 1-1 draw between Verona and Pisa as Juventus draw 2-2 with Lazio, Sassuolo beaten by Inter, and Lecce beating Udinese. Is opening door for Lecce trying to survive Cagliari and beating Lecce. Como drawing with Fiorentina, another draw on the board is not great from Torino beating Bologna. Inter just beating Juventus, Lazio beating Atalanta, Parma beating Verona, Pisa getting beat by AC, and a 2-0 win there for Napoli. We'll see how much the table's going to change after all this. There's been a lot of messing around. Cremonese getting a draw there, Fiorentina beating Pisa, AC beating Parma. Yeah, Roma beating Cremonese, Atalanta beating Napoli, Cagliari and Lazio drawing, Genoa beating Torino, Bologna and Udinese drawing. 2-2 draw between Juventus and Como. It's huge for Como that. And Lecce getting beat by Inter. 2 more game weeks and we'll calculate where we're at and see what needs changing and where things can be changed. Napoli winning their games there, Parma beating Cagliari, Pisa getting beat by Bologna, Sassuolo getting beat by Atalanta, Udinese beating Fiorentina, and Cremonese being beaten by AC. Into the final game before we're going to calculate where we're at. Atalanta beating Udinese, Cagliari drawing with Como, Genoa drawing with Roma, Bologna beating Verona, Juventus beating Pisa, Lazio beating Sassuolo, Napoli winning their game, and Lecce beating Cremonese. With 10 games to go, Inter are on 72 points, Napoli 7 points behind them. Atalanta are now ahead of Juventus, AC Milan can still catch up to both of them really, so come Roma. Fiorentina, Lazio, Bologna and even Como, as I said, are in the chases for European spots. Pisa and Cremonese right at the bottom of the table doing nothing. Lecce still trying to survive against Verona, Cagliari and Sassuolo are still pretty low, and Udinese are all pretty still low, and it's just mid-table obscurity happening there as well as Como beating Roma, adds to their chances. Torino beating Parma, you can see Verona beating Genoa. It was a huge game for them. Lazio and AC Milan drawing, Pisa drawing with Cagliari, Sassuolo beating Bologna, see Napoli beating Lecce, and Udinese beaten by Juventus. Cremonese drawing with Fiorentina. Fiorentina in the week after getting beat by Inter. We're going to see AC in the week there as well. Roma beating Lecce. You can see Atalanta beating Hellas Verona. Cagliari beaten by Napoli. As Napoli, try and keep the chase up. Genoa and Udinese drawing. Como beating Pisa. Bologna beating Lazio. We see Juventus beating Sassuolo, and Parma beating Cremonese. Just can't see where the wins are going to come from. Hellas Verona beating Fiorentina. Inter drawing with Roma there, and it was a pretty huge game for both teams. Pisa with 1-1 draw against Torino. Sassuolo beating Cagliari. Napoli then beating AC Milan. Udinese beating Como, a team that's managed to get a few results against teams that you wouldn't expect them to get the results against. Atalanta winning their game. Fiorentina beating Lazio, another win there for AC as they make their push. Roma beating Pisa. Atalanta beating Juventus, and it was a huge turnaround season really for Atalanta. Genoa beating Sassuolo. Como getting beat by Inter. Bologna beating Lecce. Just nails in the coffin kind of things, guys. Torino beating Verona, and Parma getting beat by Napoli. Roma, Atalanta draw, Hellas Verona beaten by AC, Inter beating Cagliari, Juventus drawing to Bologna, Pisa beating Genoa is a huge one that. Sassuolo drawing with Como, you see Napoli beating Lazio there, Udinese beating Parma, Cremonese drawing with Torino, and Lecce getting beat by Fiorentina. 5 games to go, Inter still top of the table by 5 points. Napoli not managed to make the right ground on them just yet. Inter just having a mega season here. Cremonese, Pisa and Lecce also in relation on Lecce just with not much fight left in Verona. Still close enough. I mean, all the way up to Udinese are still close. Or Genoa are still close enough to get relegated, but I just can't see Lecce making their way out. I mean, they could still make the way out, but I just can't see the way out staying. Como quite high on the table as well, but I can't see them making a push onto the European places. Bologna and Fiorentina can still make the push onto their European places, but Roma kind of got that secured. AC Milan and Juventus, I mean, Juventus and Atalanta are pretty secure, and Inter and Napoli have Champions League football. Fiorentina trying to make their way up, as I said. AC Milan beating Juventus is a huge game there for them. That Atalanta making their way through things. Genoa drawing with Como, keeping them safe. Bologna then beating Roma. Torino drawing with Inter. Verona beating Lecce, just, kind of secures where Lecce are going to end up at the end of the season. Udinese getting beat by Lazio, Parma beating Pisa, and then Napoli beating Cremonese helps them stay in like relative touch. Roma then beating Fiorentina, Atalanta beating Genoa, Como getting beat by Napoli, Bologna beating Cagliari, Inter beating Parma, Juventus beating Hellas Verona, Pisa beating Lecce. Kind of shows what it's going to be. Sassuolo getting beat there, Udinese beating Torino, and Cremonese getting beat by Lazio. Fiorentina beating draw with Genoa. We'll have them draw with Genoa. AC beating Atalanta, keeps it close. Torino and Sassuolo draw. Verona beating Como as Inter win their game as well. Parma beating Roma. Continue winning. Cremonese beating Pisa. Lecce getting beat by Juventus. We got 2 games to go now, and it's a 3-point gap between Inter and Napoli, so it is still very very close. Atalanta and Juventus are still going to have to fight off AC Milan for that final Champions League space, but then Roma far behind, Bologna pretty far behind. I mean, it's still to be decided for. Lecce, Pisa and Cremonese all down and out, all relegated, all sorted there. Just a poor season from all 3 really. As Cagliari managed to survive, Verona managed to survive, Sassuolo managed to survive. Let's get into the final 2 game weeks to see what can be decided in these final 2 game weeks then. As Roma beat Lazio, Atalanta beating Bologna just to secure their place really. Cagliari beating Torino, Genoa beaten by AC Milan, Como beating Parma, Inter beating Verona, Juventus drawing with Fiorentina, Pisa getting beaten by Napoli, Sassuolo beating Lecce, and Udinese beating Cremonese as they just try and make their way on the final few games. Atalanta drawing their game, confirming their spots. Bologna drawing with Inter on the last day, and that should secure into their result. 3-1 for Torino there. Verona and Roma drawing. Lazio beating Pisa. Parma drawing with Sassuolo. Napoli beating Udinese, doing all they can do on the last day. Cremonese beating Como, and Lecce beating Genoa on the last day there. Calculate the table. Inter do win the league on 96 points, with Napoli just behind him on 95 points, literally just behind him on 95 points. Atalanta finished second. AC Milan on the last day there, overtaking Juventus. Juventus finishing 5th. AC Milan would be very happy with the Champions League spot there, with Modric helping into that. Roma just missing out. Bologna, Fiorentina, Lazio all still up there. Big gap between them and Como. Como secure in 10th spot there. Lecce finishing 10 points behind Cagliari there. Pisa, Cremonese and Lecce just a poor season. Put all their points together, they don't reach to what Inter were on. That's going to be the end of the video, guys. Let me know your Serie A predictions, and if you like the video, like, see more, subscribe. Thank you for watching the video, guys, and hopefully I do see you on the next one. Cheers.